Hey, I want to take some time today to address a topic that was presented to me by a viewer last night. This viewer asked me, in today's age of protests and riots, etc., what should we do to be prepared inside our vehicles in case we ever find ourselves inside one of these riots or swarmed by rioters or protesters? Well, first off, before I go into this, I want to say, the best way to avoid that is to just stay away from where you know they're happening. Like in my town, Portland, which is one of the hot spots now, it's basically a one-block area in front of the courthouse downtown, in front of the federal building. So it's really easy to avoid. And if you go like a half a block in any direction around it, there's really nothing going on. Despite what some people want to portray to you that, Portland is burning to the ground and everyone's afraid and staying indoors. Not even close to true. Riots these days are pretty lame. Let's just say kids these days don't even know how to riot or protest. But there is some danger out there. We've seen it happen a few times now where people find themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time in a car because these protests and things are going on, and there's always going to be bad people in these crowds, period. Just nothing you can do about it. It's just like there's no way you could prevent every bad person from owning a gun. There's no way you could prevent every protest from having some rioters there. And you can't really prevent them from doing what they're going to do other than, hold them accountable and be there and stop them. But I digress here a little bit. Like I said, we do know it has happened a few times. In fact, it's happened I think 5 to 7 times in the past few months that people have found themselves in their vehicle, trapped, assaulted by the mob, etc. Now, I want to keep that in perspective before anyone accuses me of fear-mongering. Keep in mind that in this time where we've had 5 or 7 of these events happen, as far as violent carjackings are concerned, just random carjackings, there's been between 6,000 and 9,000 of them. And many of them where people were injured and property was stolen or damaged, etc. So let's keep that in perspective. 5 to 7 to 9,000. I think you should be more worried about the carjacking than you should the protest stuff. But just in case you do find yourself in those bad situations, let's explore it and what things you should have in your car and what things you should do to have a better chance of getting through it safely. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, you got like a 99% chance of getting through it safely anyway, because the fact that it's happened so few times, we all know there's been a whole lot more cars get close to protests than what we've seen actual problems come from. So let's not go crazy here. But let's say you do find yourself in a situation where protesters have swarmed your car. Like I said, the best thing you can do is avoid protests, protest areas, but sometimes they march through the streets and you might not know where they're going to be, and you might go around a corner and suddenly you're in the middle of a protest and you can't back up, can't turn around, whatever. Like I said, avoidance is best, but we're going to go with the example of you actually get stuck in the protest, and the even rarer example that they start swarming your car and you have a problem. Well, what should you have in your car? I don't think it varies from every other day. I think you should have the same things in your car you would have in your car if you weren't worried about protests. You should have your carry gun in your car, or maybe even a car gun, a gun that you keep in your car depending on what state you live in and whether that's illegal or not. You should have a first aid kit. That's very important, because remember, we're not only dealing with what you might have to do to survive, we're dealing with what might have to be done afterwards to treat wounds from surviving. So make sure you have a first aid kit. Now, another thing you should have, in my opinion, is you should have bear spray or some type of mace in your car, because that can be a big deterrent if someone comes up to your window, whatever, and you don't think they're actually dangerous enough for you to have to be fearful for your life, but you don't want this to continue. Mace, bear spray, awesome thing to have in your car. Now, another thing you should have is, I believe everybody should have a good fixed blade knife in their car, like a K-bar or something under the driver's seat. Could be very helpful if there's a lot of arms coming through a broken window trying to drag you out. So I think a fixed knife is an important thing. Now, another thing I think that everyone should have in their car, and this is always, and especially during the riots and protests, just in case you get trapped in your car for an extended period of time and say it's hot or your air conditioning doesn't work or it's stuffy in there because you got to keep your windows up, have water in your car. Should always have emergency water, especially stuff like canned water, or just have canteen that you refill occasionally. Just have water in your car, because you don't know, you might get trapped somewhere and people aren't being violent, but they're not letting you leave. or you don't have the ability to leave, say your car stalls or something, you're going to want to have water in your car, because you might be there for a few hours before things dissipate. So if you have those things, your carry gun, a car gun, whatever you want to have there, a good fixed knife, water, bear spray, a first aid kit. And don't forget the first aid kit and the water. Those are the things I think most people neglect, is first aid and water. Water is essential for survival and over just a day or two, and it's essential for comfort if it's warm and you're getting thirsty. So have those things in your car. As far as what to do, well, one of the things you need to do is make sure your windows are rolled up. If your windows are down when you go into it, make sure you roll them up. That's a barrier between you and them. Make sure your car doors are locked. That's very important. You don't want someone to be able to come up and just open your car door. That's not a good thing. Luckily, most cars now lock once they start moving until you actually put the car in park again. So, but if your car doesn't do that, make sure your doors are locked. Also, one that I think a lot of people overlook is keep your seatbelt on. Now, I know a lot of people think they take their seatbelt off so that they can move around more and get stuff in their car, but that's fine if you need to take it off to reach something, but keep it on while you're sitting in the driver's seat. Because if they do break your window or do somehow get your door open, that seatbelt is going to make it a lot harder for them to drag you immediately out onto the street and put you on the ground where you're at a disadvantage. It's going to give you more time to react, either with bear spray, knife, or firearm, depending on what level the threat you believe is. And if someone's dragging you out of your car, right then and there, go to full-on red alert as far as I'm concerned. Because no one ever drags you out of your car to have a polite conversation about your differences. So if anyone puts their hands on you and starts to try to remove you from your vehicle, that's when I say you fire. And you might be firing before that, but definitely then. Also, another thing I want to address is there is a risk of you getting shot from somebody outside, because people outside have guns also, which is another reason why you need to keep your windows your windows up. Because if your windows are closed, like I said, keep them up and they're closed, that glass might deflect a bullet someone shoots at you. Or at least alter the course or splatter the bullet or whatever to give you a better chance of survival, so you don't want your windows down for that either. But as far as someone shooting from the outside of your car, that's very unlikely. You are far more likely, once again, to keep things in perspective, you're far more likely to be killed by your spouse or your children or your best friend than you are to have that happen to you in this country. So I wouldn't be losing a lot of sleep over it. But just in case, that's why I say, now a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this part. This is a part that I know a lot of people will disagree with. If you turn a corner or you find yourself approaching one of these things and you can't get away from it, I'm a firm believer, especially if they come to your car, of not stopping. If they're coming down the road and you see them and you can pull over and park, that's one thing. But if you find yourself in the middle of it and they start to swarm your car, don't stop. Keep moving at a rolling speed, a speed that people can get out of the front of you. And you'll notice they do. They act real brave standing in front of cars and stuff until one of them isn't stopping. And then they scatter like rats and act like victims again. Because I was standing in the street and he came right at me. Like in Seattle where they got hit. The other ones scattered like rats and the ones that were too slow got hit. But like I said, don't stop. I say keep going at a relative safe speed that people can actually get out of the front of your car. They will part, and then as soon as you've got a chance to floor it. Don't ever give them a stationary target. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to stop if they mob my car. I'm going to start going. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to start slowly speeding up to where it's harder and harder for you to get out of the front of my vehicle. And if you want to try to take a shot at me during that, I'm willing to risk that you're not in a good position to do so, since I'm moving and there's a crowd of people. So that's my advice on if you get swarmed, don't stop moving. But other than that, like I said, a lot of people might feel completely differently about that, and I can understand their perspective. But I say don't stop moving, have those things in your car, and also be aware of where things are happening. Don't go to the bad neighborhoods in your car. When I go to these places, I take an Uber. I do. And I'm one of the channels you've seen with boots on the ground. I'm not some channel that's just posting other people's videos from places I've never been and trying to pretend like I know what's going on and then trying to scare you into buying shit. Tell those people, I'll buy our body armor if I want it. You don't have to try to portray that our country is falling down and our democracy is failing and blah, 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 just to sell your fucking body armor. That makes you a scoundrel, not a patriot. makes you pretty much a scumbag. So those are the things I have to say. I know it's been long and rambling, but I think it's very easy to, one, avoid problems in your car. So I don't think you're ever going to have this issue. But if you ever do have it, I think you should just have the basic things in your car you should always have in your car to be prepared, because we're gun people. Things don't have to be likely for us to want to be prepared for them. Like, even though it's very unlikely you're going to have any trouble in your car with a rally or a protest or a riot, we still want to be prepared for it. Just like we're prepared for that off chance we might ever have to use our gun in self-defense. We know we'll probably never use our gun in self-defense, but we want to be prepared if we do. And you don't have to be afraid to do that. These people that talk about how, oh, if you talk about the realities of being prepared, you're somehow scared. No, that's not what it's about at all. And you might want to check yourself before you start saying that about guns, because that just gives the anti-gunners more argument. But like I said, those are the things you should do. Avoid it. If you can't avoid it, those are the things you should have in your car. And remember, like I said, no one needs to present a stationary target. If they trap you somewhere, keep going. If you stop, it's going to be more likely that you can't get restarted. So just keep going slowly and carefully. And if anyone gets in front of your car, that's on them, not on you. And remember, no one ever tries to drag you out of your car to have a conversation. So if it gets to that point, be glad you have those things in your car and be prepared to use them if you have to. Hey, this is the Yankee Marshal, just reminding everyone out there that if you disagree with anything I say in any one of my videos, be it something political or tactical, I am going to give you the opportunity to come talk to me face to face instead of just having to put stuff in comment sections where someone might not even read them. You can come in one of my live chats and tell me off in person. You just have to send an email to shootingleftofcenter@gmail.com, and in the subject line of that video put slap the yank, and then I will get back with you and set up a time where you can come in one of the live chats and tell me off face to face.